Story time. I have a notebook because I want to try not to veer off and digress and go all over the place like my mind normally does. So, I have a kid that just moved out, an adult kid. He's not really my kid, but he's like my kid. Um, and he's been with me for the majority of 4 years, even though he had to leave to clean up a couple legal messes a couple of different times. When he first come to me 4 years ago, he was in the throes of addiction. Anybody, and I think everybody these days is touched by addiction in some sort of way, right? I myself am a recovering addict. Uh, my throes were in my younger years. So I know what it's like, okay? And I know how important it is to have a support system. When he come to me, he was a mess, all right? Now, fast forward until to this very last year. I know that I've known for the last year that it's time for me to move on. That I personally am ready to make some big life choices. And I have a few different directions that I'm still trying to navigate which one I want to go. But I need to clear space in my own life, in my own head, and inside myself, inside my home. And I knew that with him, praise God, hopefully, prayerfully, he is on a very good role and can maintain the role that he's on without me. And there gets to a point where, you know, you're more of a you've become more of a crutch, right? More of a crutch at a certain point when you're helping people and you know that they don't necessarily need you anymore. You're more of the crutch, more of the comfort zone. And at a certain point, it's time to launch. And that can be very, very hard and very scary for the person you're helping. And even you, even me, because like the last thing I want to do is um, give him his out date and watch him self sabotage, right? And that is a big thing, uh, right? But I've had to do a lot of self work, and I've done a lot of self work over the last year, and clearing up a lot of my own baggages, and a lot of analyzing my old relationships with people and my part in them, and the codependency cycles that I was in, and I come to a point throughout this year that I'm not trying to have a codependency dynamic here, right? So anyway, long story short, he moved out over this last weekend, and I was so happy for him, even though he wasn't all that happy. Uh, Rent these days sucks; it's very expensive, and he was paying me very, very minimal because that's all I asked of him. I was more concerned about him being able to self support and take care of his own needs and start saving his money to be able to move out. So I asked very little out of him. And all along, he was very good at buying his own food, his own needs. Even was able to buy his own car. Like there was things that he was able to accomplish while he was here, right? So anyway, he moved out over this last weekend, and it's been a week, and I have waited every day for this boy to come back and clean up his room and empty his stuff out of my freezer and out of my refrigerator. off my kitchen shelves, out of the bathroom, the common places that we shared space. And I will message him again today and hope that he comes tomorrow, which I know is his normal day off. But I'm also, I'm in my head, I'm thinking, this boy just going to leave me with this stuff, right? Now, where I come from, in my generation as a Gen Xer, you don't leave people messes, right? If you need people and you need people's help, you don't wear out your welcome. I was taught that you don't wear out your welcome, and you don't leave a footprint. You don't leave you don't leave messes for other people to clean up. Okay. My younger self, I know damn straight I left a lot of messes. I left a trail of messes all the way for a lot of people. By his age, I was done leaving messes for other people. I took my messes elsewhere, and I was very uh, responsible for my messes. I didn't want people in my messes. So, anyway, so I'm like going through this right now, and in my head, like, there's all these things I want to say. There's all these things I want to say. Like, I want to call him out on my ego says I want to call him out on his shit, right? I want to hold him responsible. I want to teach him a few last lessons here, right? But that's ego. Because the fact is, he learned a lot while he was here. And even though I know that holding him accountable, yes, I'm going to leave him one more text and ask him, but if he doesn't, he doesn't. Okay? And the fact is, where he come from, how he was raised, was completely different than how I was raised. And his parents weren't exactly clean people and left a lot of messes everywhere, a lot of fires everywhere. And he was in the mix of all of them. So there's a dynamic there, right? And that dynamic is not mine to heal, it's his. Unfortunately, his parents aren't alive anymore. And a lot of that has to do with addiction. And this morning I was thinking about nature versus nurture, right? And how that works. And then I went deeper and into karmic lessons and how all of these kids in some sort of way have affected me, and I can see my own lessons in them and the growth that, like, over the last 4 years, the growth and massive changes that he has made in his own life. He's made a complete 360, complete. And I'm very confident that he can do this from here. He can absolutely do this from here, right? But there was a lot I learned about myself with him being here, especially over this last year. And I'm just really hoping that a lot of my own karmic lessons are finally wrapping up, because I am understanding them and I am seeing things. And as much as my ego wants to call this boy out and go old school on him, that ain't what he needs. That's not what he needs. It's time for him to, he's going to learn on his own how to clean up his messes. But first, he needs to focus on just staying sober outside of his comfort zone. And where he's at right now is a very scary and it's intimidating. Um, as he's been in the throes of addiction and in and out of the legal system for, I don't know, I'm gonna say 15 years now, right? Since he was a teenager. And this is his full first time adulting on his own, in his own place. And I need to let him have this. I need to pull my ego out of it. Love, grace, and boundaries. I will go in there and I will clean that room. I will bag up his stuff, give him one more opportunity to come get the rest of his stuff. But if he doesn't, he doesn't. Okay? My ego wants to call him out. My love, understanding, compassion, empathy for this boy, even though he's a grown man, knows that he is just starting back out. And there was times in my own life where I very much had fires everywhere. I love fires everywhere. I was a hot mess that left messes everywhere, and other people cleaned up my messes. Even though, even when I took my messes elsewhere and I lived elsewhere and was in very, very abusive relationships, this and that, there was times where there was a couple of times because of due to being stalked, I left with absolutely nothing but a suitcase and caught a Greyhound or an Amtrak. And I love those things. Everything I owned, I had to leave behind. And I'm reminding myself of this, right? And there was other people that still had to clean up after me. It took me a very, very long time, a lot of years to get to where I am now. So, loving him at this point is going to have and cleaning up the damn mess. It's not a big deal, and it's really not even a big mess. It's an ego thing. I was taught you don't leave. You don't leave messes. You don't leave other people pick up shit. Okay? But these are lessons that I embrace now. These are, um, you know, I was raised this way. Guess what? A lot of the ways that I was raised also caused a lot of the havoc in my life. All right? It's not always. Just because you was raised that way does not mean it's clear. It does not mean that it was right. It does not mean that those lessons apply to everything across the board. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say is giving grace to other people is what this world needs right now. We don't have to agree with them. We don't have to approve. We don't know. We are responsible for our own damn selves. We are responsible for cleaning up our own messes, even if that means giving somebody grace and setting boundaries. And, you know, my revolving door of helping other people is, I'm kind of closing it right now. I am, because I am now at a point in my own life where I'm ready to launch myself. And that is the glory of the empty nest syndrome. And where people want to call midlife crisis, I call it midlife liberation, right? So I'm going to give grace. I'm going to love these kids and let them live on while I live on and setting my boundaries There's a lot that's not mine to teach anymore. I've I've done a lot of teaching throughout the last couple of decades and trying to help other people. And right now it's all about my own growth from the inside out, right? Instead of trying to save everybody. And I guess that's all I had to say. I don't know if any of this made sense, but it was just something I needed to get out. And maybe other people could relate to what I'm saying. There is a distinct difference between our ego and our heart and soul. And when you take your ego out of the equation and you're just acting out of heart and soul, you give grace and you let go. You pick your damn battles. You just do. Right? Peace out.